In this remodeling of this single-family home, we're getting close to wrapping this site up. It's starting to come together. We're finishing our millwork, our painting inside. It's starting to look good. Our attention now is going to turn to the outside of the home. As this thing is well on their way of being done inside, we're going to determine now, is painting this home something that's on our list? If so, our painters should have been there prepping and painting long ago. I mean, this is something that they're not in anybody else's way outside doing their thing. So we make some decisions around that. And let me say something about paint color in general, both exterior and interior. Very, very, very few people have gifts in the world of choosing color. And people think, gosh, I think this is a great color. Everybody's going to love this light blue with purple trim. And they paint their projects the wrong color, and everybody that walks through there just shakes their head like, are you kidding me? Spend a couple $100 to hire somebody who knows color, who can pick out a 3-color scheme for your exterior, the main body color and a 2-tone trim color. Hire somebody that knows current styles and colors to go inside the house and just write on the walls exactly what color these walls and trim are going to be, and give you the manufacturer, the paint, and the color so that your painter doesn't have to think. Never ask your painter what color he should paint something. Believe me. You're going to make those decisions, and if you don't have gifts in this area, which very few people do, you're going to hire somebody. I mean, a couple $100 can get somebody there just with a color swatch going, here's what you should do. Done. Out of there. The same thing in the world of choosing tile and cabinet colors and lighting fixtures. For very minimal cost, you can get somebody to come in and just say, here's what you need to do. Now, if you're going to hire the full-on interior designer for a full new construction project, you're going to spend some money on that. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about somebody who has these gifts. It may not even be their business. Maybe you can get their expertise for the cost of a great dinner gift certificate. They'll show up, and in about an hour, they'll just start telling you what to do. Believe them. Go to their own home. Look at it. Oh my gosh, it looks like something out of a magazine. They know what they're doing. You don't. People laugh at you. They don't laugh at them. Go to people that have a gift in this area, all right? We've got the exterior done. I'd like to pay some special attention to the entryway. Those entry steps, if there are steps coming up to the home, need to be solid. They need to be pristinely painted. That entry porch area has to be absolutely beautiful with flower pots ready to go. Screen doors that are tacky looking on the front, get rid of them, right? Just lose them. A nice painted, beautiful door, or a stained natural wood color door in the front. Screen doors are practical. People don't buy practical. They buy emotion. There's nothing emotional about a $60 screen door. It's a pain in the ass. Get rid of it. It's just like storm windows. They may be real practical. They look uglier in hell. Get rid of them. This is all about creating an emotional reaction. All right? So, same thing with landscaping. Don't be cheap and get some topsoil and plant some grass in front. We don't have time for that. Go buy instant lawn and lay it down in front. Don't cut costs by buying the little tiny 1-gallon plants that you can buy for 79 cents at Kmart. Buy some bigger plants, some mature plants, and really dress up the front of this house. We have got to make an impact when people show up. Within the first 10 seconds, they've got to be going, oh my gosh. Exterior lighting fixtures, big deal, especially those right up by the front door. They've got to look nice. Some cheap little jar light, porch light by the front. Spend a few bucks to buy something that looks nice and classy. Right? That looks heavy and substantial and really beautiful. Because, again, people are going to make most of their decision before they walk in the front door. All right? Fencing around the property. Gosh, what a big seller. If you can take a small backyard and completely fence it off, do you realize what you just did to the mom with 2 little kids? Oh, it's like a playpen in the backyard. But without a fence, this house has limited appeal. With a fence, we're home, honey. Sign the papers, right? So building a nice fence with nice gates that can contain children and animals in the backyard is money well spent. You can put up fencing very reasonably priced that makes a huge impact, okay? By the way, on fencing, never paint fences. If this is a cute little ornate fence for your own home, that's one thing. But when you paint fencing, you're going to have to really do a full job of prep, paint. Very expensive to do it right. Build the fence, mask off the flower beds, and spray a sealer on the fence. Very quick, very simple, looks nice. Let's not make it more complicated than that. So we've worked through this home. We've got everything looking good. We've got the cleaning people in to clean the windows in and out. We've got the inside looking sparkly. Before this goes on the market, I want you to put a great big comma here and get 3 or 4 independent peers, people who know business, to come over to your home before you put it on the market. And when they walk in the door, I want you to hand them a blue roll of masking tape. Tell them that you just want to put a small little speck of tape towards anything in the home that needs touch-up or that draws negative attention. Something that doesn't look quite perfect in here, just take a little piece of blue tape and put it on there. The reason is that you've been at this job site for a couple months now, and you start looking at it from a different perspective. You're not seeing it from the eyes of a consumer. You are seeing it from your eyes. You need to see this from the eye of a consumer who is going to notice things that now you've seen so often you don't even notice anymore. So here comes 3 or 4 people with the blue tape, and all of a sudden there's blue tape here, there, and everywhere. You thought you were done. You're not. Now you've got to go back and address those areas, and you really have to address them. If you don't, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Go back, touch up all those areas, make the changes necessary. Look at every piece of blue tape for what it is. It might be that you forgot to dust out a drawer in the kitchen. It might be that a light bulb is out in a location. It might be, some touch-up paint here or some caulk that's been splattered there or what have you. But get every last detail done. And then at that point, you need to really consider hiring staging people to come in and stage this home. Professional staging companies will charge you a one-time fee to initially set the furniture and the staging, and then a monthly fee for each month that their staging inventory is at your home. But this is money well spent. I can tell you a story of how I just fought this idea of staging tooth and nail at a 12-unit apartment building that I built. I converted it to condominiums 15 years later, and I was going to sell the building out. And I redid all the units. They look just beautiful, market ready. Let's get them on the market. And the listing agent that I chose to list them would not start the sales process without a unit being staged. Wouldn't start the process. Absolutely refused. And I was, let's get these on the market. Let's go. We're all done. Let's get them gone. No, I'm not even going to start the process until you stage a unit. And she absolutely insisted that 2 walls on the lower floor be painted in an accent color, a designer accent color, and that staging be brought in. She wanted $15,000 to actually purchase all the staging and have my crew paint these 2 walls, assuring me that throughout the process of selling these units out, she will be able to sell the staging to various buyers and that it will be money that will be returned to me throughout the process of actually selling these buildings out. Of course, no one to take delivery of their equipment till the last unit was sold. Well, I fought tooth and nail, finally gave in. The unit was completely staged. My guys painted the 2 accent walls, one in the little powder room on the half bath downstairs and the other in the living room wall. And the staging was set in the worst unit in the entire complex, which again was a decision that I thought, what are we doing that for? I would have put it in the nice unit. You know, model homes. Models are pretty. Models are nice, right? No, we put it in the worst unit, the one right up on the busy street. And you know what? The joke was on me. What happened? That unit was the first one to sell. And as soon as it was beyond contingencies, she said, okay, pick up the staging, move all the staging to this unit, paint the same exact 2 walls out. And what happened? That unit sold immediately. And here we go again. Well, in a 12-unit complex, mathematically, what is the most number of times you could move that staging? Well, that would be 11 times. And I moved that staging 11 times. I couldn't believe it. Every time we moved the staging, that unit would sell. Every single time. And it was really a statement about the mentality of my market. This was a first-time home buyer market. A very influenced market by things like color and staging. Well, again, we're not selling Jaguars, we're selling Toyotas, and so this home of ours has that type of market. Highly influenced by the way that home smells, by the music that's playing during the open houses, by the staging itself, by the flowers and the color, by the bright green grass in the landscaping out front. These are all emotional buttons that need to be hit to give our project the best chance of selling. Okay, so real important that we go that route and get every last dime of wow factor we can out of this, because we worked so hard to the day of putting it on the market. Well, here we are. Let's make sure we get every last ounce of emotion we can out of this thing, okay? Let's talk about spending money on adjoining properties. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous at its surface, but let's think about it. I was in a great project recently, a beautiful project. Matter of fact, one of my students was doing a conversion project of a 6-unit apartment building into 6 condominium units. Did a masterful job remodeling these units, absolutely pristine. 3 of these units, when you look out the north window, you look onto a neighbor's roof that is multicolored patchwork quilt-looking composition roof. It's the ugliest roof on the planet. Every unit on the north side of this building looks onto that roof. It's got a little black composition, it's got some green composition, it's got some red composition, and it's all about ready to fall off. And it's the ugliest roof known to man. And here you've got these beautiful, pristine units that you're trying to sell as condominiums, that every one of them on the north side look onto that roof. My suggestion, when I met this student, is spend $2,000, do an overlay, put a nice black comp roof on your neighbor's house, on you, and that $2,000 you spend there will be money in your pocket by getting rid of these units. Because the problem is that people come in and they look at your unit, they love it, they love it, they love it, they look out the north window and go, oh my God, what a dump. Sometimes you're going to spend money on your neighbor's property to help yourself get rid of what you have. I've built a lot of fences where technically they were my neighbor's fences. I've torn down leaning carport garages on my neighbor's property and hauled them away, of course with their permission, just because I didn't want to look at it anymore. I've brought dumpsters onto neighbors' property and cleaned up their entire landscaping, pruned all their trees, cleaned up their yard, hauled debris away, did the full makeover of their yard just so I could sell the house I have adjacent to it. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. It sounds silly on the surface to spend money on your neighbors, but the bottom line is if that house of yours sits for 2 months, you could have just paid to completely do all of that. And now the third month, you've paid more than you would have paid had you just spent the money improving your neighbor's property. Okay? Now, of course, I'm always going to start out to say, hey, I'll provide all of this. Would you chip in a little bit here? Negotiate what you can. But worst case scenario, if it's completely on you, most of the time, that's going to be money well spent. Okay? That's another thing that I want you to really consider is that you can do anything and everything to the home that you own. But where you're limited is if the homes on both sides of you and across the street are all dumps, you can't remodel everybody else's home just to get rid of yours. A simple this or a simple that, yes, you can solve it. But be very, very aware when you're buying this home that you have limited control of the properties around you, and that is a huge factor in your decision whether you buy or don't buy this home. Many times I can create instant value by taking a leaning, crummy carport and stand it up straight, do a little bracing and framing, enclose 3 sides of that carport, side it, and put a garage door on. What I've taken is a leaning carport and turned it into a 1-car garage. Now, it almost doesn't matter if a real car can get in there or not. It's still a 1-car garage on an appraisal. All right? And from a workshop standpoint, it's a big deal for the guy. Even if he can't get his car in there, this is his workshop. This is his tools. This is more important to him than an underwear drawer. This is a place where he can keep his camping gear and his tools and stuff. And you can't do that in a carport. People steal stuff. If you can stand it up straight, frame it in, side it, and put a garage door on, you could do that whole thing for $2,000. And that's $2,000 that creates a huge market return because now you've got the guy interested because there's a garage. Okay? So think about those possibilities. Sometimes you're going to buy a home where the basement doesn't have the height for you to proceed to actually finish the basement. So it provides a real function for the overall house. It's storage. There might be a laundry facility already down there, albeit a 6-foot ceiling. But really it just has storage to offer the new buyer of this home. Is there anything we should be doing down there? Well, absolutely. What we need to do down there, and this would go for a garage or an unfinished basement, is we have to make sure that we have cleaned that surface thoroughly. All the nails and crap and things that are just sort of hanging out down there need to be pulled and taken down. All of the cobwebs and the filth need to be blown out of there. All of the floor needs to be prepped and clean. And then what we need to do is to mask off anything we don't want paint on, and in that unfinished basement to spray out the underside of the joists, the underside of the subfloor, all of the foundation walls. Just spend some paint money painting out everything one great big color, okay, on the walls and the ceiling. It just gives it a clean, sanitary feeling. This doesn't need to be like the mother of all great paint jobs. The idea here is to just cover the old dirty lumber and the old scabby looking walls and give it a fresh, clean look. Mask off the furnace that may be down there, mask off the water tank that may be down there, and go to town. Then when you get the walls done, then spend some dough on some concrete paint to paint the floors out in a real, dark gray type color on all the concrete floors. Again, gives it a nice, clean, crisp look so that somebody can picture bringing their boxes down there and actually setting them on the floor and storing them. Same thing with the garage. To spend a few dollars spraying the inside of an unfinished garage and then painting out the garage floor, wow, that's just a few bucks and a few hours of time, but what an impact that makes in the overall appearance of that storage space, okay? So be sure you spend a few hours and a few bucks doing those things because that will go a long way. When we buy a single-family home with the intention of doing a remodel for flip profit, we have formulas that we are able to plug numbers into that help us evaluate whether this proposition makes sense or not. Buy and flip formulas. You've studied them. It's a matter of plugging in the right numbers, the right soft costs, the right remodeling costs, the right purchase costs, the right sales costs, and all coming down to an end to evaluate your proposition. When we are buying multiplex buildings, our brain has to go towards an entirely different formula of evaluation. Multiplex building value is a function of the rental income that particular building generates. It is very tied to rental income versus the single-family home. We're trying to hit a whole bunch of emotional buttons. In the multiplex world, we recognize that we're going to create value by rental income. How do we create more rental income? Where do we spend our money in the units or on the property that creates more rental income? If we create more rental income, we create more value. It's that simple. So it's a whole different analysis. And I want to give you a couple things that I've run across over the years that I think have helped create additional income and in the same sense helped reduce expenses, both having the same net effect on the net operating income. If we can improve our net operating income by lowering expenses or increasing income, that building becomes more valuable. All right? So let's talk about the things that I can do to lower costs of a building. Now, some of these are going to be done very inexpensively. Some of them are done without any expense at all, just a shift in the way we do things. But let's talk about a couple things. One, let's talk about garbage and recycling. If you've got a huge dumpster on site when you buy this building, and there is no recycling happening day one that you own the building, there's money to be made by simply calling the waste management company to get a smaller garbage dumpster, which will cost you less, and have them bring recycling containers, which are no cost to you or a minimal cost to you, to be able to encourage then tenants to separate their recycling from their common garbage. The net effect of that transition means that your overall cost for garbage goes down. Okay? Another thing that I'm going to do is if I've got an apartment building and each unit in that building has a tub shower combination, I'm going to be putting water-saving shower heads on all of the showers in that building. A water-saving shower head is really quite an attractive little shower head, but it saves 20-30% on your water outflow. When I can save on water outflow, I make money in two ways. A, on my water cost. B, on my sewer cost. Your sewer cost is a function of how much water goes down the drain. And so it's tied directly to your water output. If I can save some money by putting flow restrictor shower heads on, that's a big deal. I'm going to be very proactive with my tenants, letting them know that I want to know about any leaky faucets anywhere in their unit or around the building. A dripping faucet can create a huge expense in water bill. And with a little bit of proactive effort with your tenants, you can catch these problems, solve them, and therefore keep that cost down. Let's talk about heating systems for a moment. There are heating systems whereby the tenant actually pays for their own gas or their own electric heat to that unit. Independently metered gas and electric units are great from a landlord's perspective because if the tenant wants their unit warm, they turn up the heat and of course they pay for it, be it gas or electric. If the landlord pays for the heat of that building, wow, now we've got to look into ways that we can save some money. Radiant hot water heating systems where the landlord pays for not only the heat that's provided in that unit through radiant hot water registers, but also pays for the hot water for showers and sinks for the whole building. Those issues become very expensive if you don't watch your costs. Okay, so one thing is you need to have your boiler serviced properly on a regular basis. Semi-annually, somebody needs to be there, look at it, clean it, make sure it's running as efficiently as possible. The second thing is you need to set timers on your boiler system so that it's coming on and going off at times of the day when heat is needed and going off when heat isn't needed. In other words, to heat this thing at 72 degrees all day long when your whole tenant base is at work is ridiculous. You want the building starting to heat up again up to 68 degrees or so by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And at about 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, the heat is going off, encouraging people to get off and go to work. During the day, it drops down to, the high 50s, low 60s, where it stays during the day. Now, of course, these are winter month type conditions. In the summer, it's going to hold a lower temperature without any adjustments. But keeping this on a timer where we're only heating the building when we have to, when tenants are home, is really critical. The same holds true when we start talking about common area lighting. Oftentimes, common area lighting can be put on a timer. Rather than having lights on during the day in stairwells and common areas, if you can put an inline timer from the breaker through a timer to these common area lights and turn the lights on when it gets dark and turn them off in the morning when it gets light, this also saves on the overall expense factor on the building. Several of these things that we've just done and adjusted don't take any real money to do them. It just takes some initiative. And that's really critical to just see how we can save some money on the building, okay? There are certain buildings that are set up well to be able to set up a separate metering system for each unit when it comes to metering water. And what you'll find is that if you spend the money to set this up, to separately meter water on each unit, and when you start billing people for their actual water use, you'll find that your overall water use of that building goes down dramatically. When the landlord is paying for your shower, people tend to have a birthday in their shower, right? But if they're paying for their shower, they're in and they're out, all right? So the same thing is that if they're paying for their own heat, they turn it down when they leave for work. If you're paying for the heat, they don't even think about it. They just leave. They leave windows open during the day and allow you to just heat the outside. If they're paying for it, they would never do that. So encouraging tenant responsibility by metering their activity is always a good thing. The challenge is that with older buildings, tying in and installing the systems that allow you to separately meter things sometimes is very expensive. And you'll need to get some quotes on that per the age of construction of your multiplex building. Okay? All right, so there are some ways of just saving some money. Let's talk about some real easy ways when I look at a building that oftentimes I can make some small adjustments and start making extra money. A lot of buildings that I buy, the parking is included in the price of the rental unit. Immediately, in my world, parking always is an a la carte type upsell. Your unit is this much. If you want parking, it's this much more. Covered parking, obviously more desirable and therefore more expensive than uncovered parking. Garage locked parking, even more desirable than just covered carport parking. And so you have sort of a staggered list of income streams by parking. Now, selling parking obviously is a function of density. If you're right in tight to the city and parking is scarce, the price of parking goes up. It becomes much more desirable. If you're out in a rural area where that people just park in their front yard, it's going to be tough to sell a parking space. In our tight urban areas, let's keep an eye out for selling parking. Let's also keep an eye out on ways we can reconfigure the parking lot to create more parking spaces. I took a parking lot of a building that I bought once that had 4 nice parking spaces marked out. And just by reconfiguring those lines and putting them on angles, narrowing the parking space slightly, I was able to get 6 where there was 4. Okay, so I paint out the old lines, I bring in the new lines, those 2 additional parking spaces, it's $100 a month. Now, you think $100, wow, well, here we go back to finance CDs. That's $20,000 at 6% work backwards. I can go borrow $20,000, pay 6% interest. What's my payment? About the cost of 2 parking spaces. So those little changes make an overall big difference in leverageable equity. All right? Let's talk about storage. Thinking about another building that I've purchased that had an unfinished, massive basement. I mean, the basement was full length of the building from left to right and front to back. And this basement section had a level entry on the downslope side of this building. In other words, you could drive around to the low side of this building where the parking lot was and walk level entry into this huge unfinished basement. What was this unfinished basement used for? Well, for 30 years, it had been used for any tenant's excess junk. Anything they no longer wanted. The basement is much closer than the city dump, so they would just take it to the basement. And so when I first bought the building, I lined up 40-yard dumpsters like train cars, 3 of them in the parking lot, and just started filling up dumpsters. Gave the tenants notice that if they want anything out of this basement, they've got a week to do it. If they don't claim it within a week, it's getting thrown away. And I mean, just went down there and started cleaning house. Now that all this crap is out of this basement section, we've got 30 feet wide to work with and 100 and some feet long. That's a nice section of dry, full-height ceiling space. And what I was able to do is leave myself an aisleway in the middle of that space, and on each side of that middle aisleway, put in storage units that were approximately 10 feet deep, 5 feet wide, 8 foot tall. Now, what does that entail? Putting in storage units. You know, it really is so simple. It's just, it should be outlawed because I'm buying a lift of plywood. I'm buying a lift of two-by-fours. I'm buying a lift of treated plate for the lower plate. And I'm simply going in there and I am framing, dividing walls throughout this entire place. It's all it is. It's just framing. Then once it's all framed, I'm coming with plywood and I'm plywooding the inside of these walls, just every other wall. In other words, so that when you look at one of your storage spaces, one of your inside walls, you'll see sheeting, and the other, you'll see studs which are sheeted from the other side. In other words, start on the left and sheet every right wall all the way down the hallway. And start on your left and sheet every right wall. Then the facing of the whole front is sheeted, plywood doors, hasps, latches, done. This was a weekend project. One weekend, I can take a whole basement and put in 22 storage rooms that rent for $75 a piece. Well, think about that. Think about the bottom line NOI. All of this income now goes directly to the bottom line. There's no expenses that I have to take out of this improvement. This is pure net profit going right to the bottom line. So, big changes. In order to create a secure storage area, I put a entryway door into this main storage area with a lock and a deadbolt so that any storage client would have a key to this lock and this deadbolt, be able to come in to the storage area, some pull chains and lights in every unit, pole chains and lights in all storage areas, and then a switch to light up the hallway. Very simple wiring of simple porcelain fixtures with a hanging light bulb. And then they would put their own lock on their own hasp to lock up their storage. Well, very simple. I'm talking $1,000 worth of materials, a weekend worth of labor, and you can do the math. 1 month's rent covers everything I just did, and every month since then has been pure profit. Now that's the type of improvement you want to make on a building that's a multiplex where the bottom line of cash flow is what you're trying to improve. As we improve that cash flow, look at what it does to the value of the building. Let's round this off just for fun. Let's just say that by putting in this storage facility, I increased the cash flow of that building by $2,000 a month. That's conservative. All right? $24,000 a year as an NOI. If I were to take just that additional improvement of $24,000 and in a 6 cap market, what value increase did that building achieve based on that one improvement? If you were to do the math on that equation I just gave you, you'd realize that we just increased the value of that building by $400,000 by spending 1 weekend of our time and $1,000 of material. Think about that. I need that to kind of blow your mind. We've already got the space there. It's an unfinished space. It is free square footage to do anything we want with. And what we did with $1,000 is we made $400,000 of value immediately at a 6 cap market. These are the kinds of brain waves that need to flow through your head when it comes to multiplex buildings. If I'm going to go into a unit and make changes, I need to know that the value that I'm creating in the building because of increased rents justifies the amount of money I'm spending. That simple. Okay? So when I buy this unit, I look at it and yes, I've got to have a unit that's clean and neat and solid and functioning. Right? But am I going to spend $50,000 on that unit to increase the rent $25 a month? Of course not. But am I going to spend $5,000 on that unit to increase the rent by $300 a month? Think about this now. $300 a month, annualized net profit adds $3,600 to the net operating income. $3,600 divided by 0.06 at a 6 cap. What I've done by creating that change is I've increased the value of that building at a 6 cap by $60,000. $3,600 a year at a 6 cap. When that $3,600 goes right to the profit side, there's no additional expenses happening in this unit, right? That is a net operating income addition. $3,600 divided by a 6 cap increases the value of that building by $60,000 when I increase the rents. Well, on an annual basis. So am I willing to spend $5,000 to create 60? Well, of course I am. You see? I need some math evaluations going on through every change you're about to make in this building. Will the change I'm about to make increase the revenue stream of the building? It is that simple. Now, I've got to keep tenants happy. I've got to keep a building safe. I've got to keep things from leaking. I've got to keep walkways safe. I've got to keep things well lit. All of those things are just holding the line maintenance items. And when you buy this building initially, you're going to do a thorough inspection and see where's the deferred maintenance. You may have to spend some money initially just to keep this thing from further deterioration, right? In other words, I've got a roof that's barely not leaking, and it's giving me the ability to keep all my units full. I'm going to spend $20,000 putting on a new roof. Am I able to raise the rents as a result? No, I still have a roof that's not leaking. I need to spend the money. It needs a new roof. It's on the borderline of falling apart, but I can't expect to raise rent. Well, that's an expense item. Nothing you can do about that. day in and day out, it's sort of like surgery that is elective surgery. If I'm going to need surgery for survival, go in and get it done. Elective surgery, I better have a good reason to do it. I'm expecting a return from that choice. Well, the improvements that I choose to make, that I don't have to make on units, are all based on, can I get more income stream out of the building as a net result of those efforts? Okay? Here are a few things that tenants really like. Let me give you a few suggestions. On certain buildings, again, gas on the street, gas availability, I may be able to, on certain buildings, add a gas fireplace to a living room, a direct vent gas fireplace to a living room of a unit. To do that may be as inexpensive as $1,000 a unit, but by doing so, I might be able to charge $50 more a month in rent. Well, $50, $600 a year is my NOI. Does that $600 at a 6 cap justify spending $1,000? Of course it does. Do the math, right? If that fireplace cost me $25,000 to put it in to raise it $50, no, of course not. Small changes, big improvement, all right? Survey says tenants that are renting this unit will pay more for the same unit if it has a dishwasher. Okay? So you're looking at your current kitchen. There is no dishwasher. But right next to the sink on the right-hand side is a 24-inch drawer bank and another 24-inch drawer bank. Could you not sacrifice one 24-inch drawer bank, take that out, set the dishwasher in, tie into the plumbing that is right next door in the sink cabinet, tie into the drain that's right next door in the sink cabinet. All that's left is to get some power there, and you've got a dishwasher in. Conceivably, in certain situations, that dishwasher could be put in for $750 labor and materials. Okay? Now, if I'm able to put that in for $750 and by virtue of doing that, raise rent $50 a month because it has a dishwasher, survey says put in the dishwasher. If it costs me $10,000 to put the dishwasher in because I've got to completely gut and remodel the whole kitchen to do it, of course not. Small changes, relatively inexpensive, but only when they create an ability to charge more for what you have. Okay? So this is the theme all along. Saving money by cutting expenses, small changes that improve revenue stream, all having the same net effect on the bottom line, all going right to the income approach to value, increasing the value of the building. Now, increasing the value is one improvement, but I want you to understand what increases value. It's improving your cash flow. Improving your cash flow, the greatest part of that is that it creates leverageable equity. That's where this whole thing hits the horsepower button. Because when we create leverageable equity in this income-producing property, we create the ability to borrow against the building to buy more buildings. Wow. That's the best part of owning a building, is when we realize that owning a building leads to owning more buildings, leads to owning more buildings. And those buildings in the stream of appreciation is what owning real estate is all about. Owning real estate allows you to buy more real estate. Borrowing money allows you to borrow more money. These are principles that once we understand them, wow, the river, the stream keeps getting more swift and more swift and more swift all the time. That's what we want. Another way that I have created some additional revenue is in a building is to take the laundry room where prior to my ownership, there were regular washers and dryers in a laundry room. And I was able to take those out, get rid of them, and bring in coin-operated laundry. Coin-operated laundry is a simple change that can be made that more than justifies the cost of the machines. You can purchase a washer and a dryer coin-operated for about $1,200. Based on the number of units you have in the building, you'll have to make an evaluation of spending that money is worth it or not. What you'll find is that on an average, a unit will produce at $1.25 wash, $1.25 dry. Each unit in a one-bedroom unit building will generate about $20 a month in coin revenue. If it's a two-bedroom unit building, about $30 a month in coin-operated revenue. When you look at those numbers, you simply add up the number of units you have in the building, and you think, okay, let's say I've got a 10-unit building, and they're all one-bedroom units. That's $200 a month that I should be able to get out of this coin-operated machine. I can buy the entire machine, two of them, a washer and a dryer, for $1,100. So you can do the math and realize that in 6 months of coin revenue, you've paid for the machines. Every day those machines work after 6 months, that's money in your pocket. Now, of course, there are expenses associated with running those machines. The power and the water to run those machines, the gas, if it's a gas dryer. But the fact of the matter is you need to provide them, and the ones that were there before, nobody was charging anything for. So you had the expense side, but you didn't have the income side. The income side, at least in this case, pays for your machines and the expenses to operate them. Another thing that you may want to look into, which again can very well be a justified remodeling improvement in a multiplex, and that is to find a space in that unit where you can install a stack washer dryer. Now, they make a washer dryer all in one unit that really is the size of a dishwasher. What I find, though, is that the load size is so limited that it doesn't have a great appeal in the normal marketplace. It has a place in the world, but not in the normal multiplex marketplace. But a full-size stack washer dryer, survey says, wow, people will pay up to $75 a month more in rent for that unit if it has its own stack washer dryer in their own unit. I mean, think about it. Do you want to pack your dirty clothes up and haul them down to a laundry room and start them and stop them and haul them in and haul them out, and the last guy that just threw his crap in there, has feet that smell like yesterday's news? No, you don't want to do that. You want your own washer dryer, and you'll pay for it. The challenge is that some units are set up well for this in terms of making it very reasonable and very inexpensive, and others just aren't. You're going to have to look at that space. Now, if you've got a big pantry closet, that on one of the walls of that pantry closet, there's plumbing, drain and water plumbing, it's a no-brainer. The big thing that you've got to be near is the drain plumbing. Drain plumbing is always the toughest part of the equation whenever you're putting something in that requires drain. Drain plumbing is the hardest thing to get around. I can get water lines anywhere. I can get power anywhere. The drain plumbing, I can't get anywhere. So you're going to have to find a space that is on an adjoining wall to some existing drain plumbing. So there's our challenge. Now, I can think of buildings where these have been easily installed, and it's a no-brainer. You spend $1,000 on a real nice stack washer dryer unit, electric, you put it in there. Venting, again, not a big problem, but if you can tie it in to an outside wall or get it near an outside wall, again, every unit is set up different. I'd like that vent to be a direct vent right to the outside wall. That's ideal. If I can't get that done, can I go through the floor and out? That's another possibility. It may entail cutting the whole floor out in a section and putting that vent in, running it from the dryer through the floor joist out the side. There's a lot of ways to get water lines to this unit. There's a lot of ways to get power to the unit. The two biggest challenges you'll run into are the drain plumbing and the venting. So you're going to just have to look at your unit, size it up. But if you can do this for $750 for the unit itself and $300 or $400 or $500 of labor to install this, Let's say we're $1,250 to install this labor and materials in our unit, but we're charging $75 a month more in rent as a result. Well, I think it's pretty obvious by now. We've run a lot of these scenarios. That's a no-brainer. You just spend the money, you do your entire building all at once, which of course, when you buy all these appliances at once, your cost for appliance goes down. When you've got your plumber there, your electrician there, he's doing all the units at the same time. You're probably going to get a net, cost for each unit down lower as a result. And then you charge everybody $75 a month more because they've got in-unit stack washer dryer. No brainer. You're spending money only to make more money. What I want you to understand about remodeling multiplex buildings is that the changes that you choose to make have to be justified by an increase of income stream that those changes will generate. Change just for change's sake doesn't make any economic sense. Multiplexes are valued by their income stream. I want you to keep your improvement brain in that line, making improvements that are justified by income stream. The maintenance side of the equation has to go on, keeping roofs repaired and all of the landscaping maintenance and all of the normal building maintenance. I'm not expecting additional rent just to keep the building solid and looking good. The change side of the equation, the remodeling side, I want to have tied to additional opportunities of income stream. So we've got two different things that we've taken a look at, and there is no way with words that I can put a perfect bow on the topic of remodeling. You've heard it said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's never more evident than when you're trying to describe the processes of construction. But I wanted to start this series by some fairly detailed discussions around residential remodeling, multiplex remodeling, and then, of course, our whole discussion started out with an understanding of construction from a new perspective from start to finish. Assembling the building helps us understand how to take it apart. Knowing how something went together helps us understand how to make changes in it. And so my hope is that this entire series has helped you understand the processes of construction, the choices that we need to make around remodeling, and what drives those choices, how to make intelligent decisions, how to bring in experts that allow us the information we need to make an overall value decision. I'd like to take this at this point and put a bow on it and direct you towards the DVD portion of this package, because what I'd like to do now is take you out in the field and to point to and to talk about certain parts of the construction remodeling process that now, having heard about it, a picture added to what you now know should put a real good basic working knowledge in your head that'll allow you to go from here as a much more profitable real estate investor. So thanks for your full attention. Let's turn our attention now to the DVD portion of this, and out in the field with Boots and Carhartt we go.